So welcome back to another episode. Welcome back to another Rob. I called him up and I'm like, you gotta get over here. I think I have a very interesting episode for us to do.
Oh yes.
Oh yes, because we have all been poor at one time with this gaming hobby. And we want to talk about all the times when we were poor during our formative youth and what we had to do to get games. And now, nothing too bad, for sure. Nothing too bad, for sure. And I'll ask you guys before we begin, what are some things that you did to get games back in your formative youth or even now? Did you have to take some cans in? Did you have to return something? Let us know down below. So Rob, tell me about some times in your life where you didn't have the money, but you wanted the games.
Oh, I can tell you about so many.
I know.
8 and 16-bit eras, the only times I'd really get games would be, if I had a good report card, or, if it was a birthday or something like that. But there were times, I think most of my struggles were just after high school. Because I graduated, and I mean, no job, no money, no nothing, and so you've got to try and find ways to scrimp and scrounge, and we were Super NES just getting into the PS1 era, and I remember I took on so many crappy little part-time jobs to try and make just little bits of coin, but then of course that started cutting into the game time.
Those stupid jobs getting in the way of playing games.
You remember my first job was at White Spot.
Oh yes.
And I was bussing tables, but I was doing it just so I could get money so I could buy games.
I know. I would just work with my friend on a Sunday and get a couple $100, and all that money wouldn't be saved. It wouldn't be saved.
Oh God, savings? What are those?
Saving? What was that? I remember. One thing that I know that me and you did, and a lot of other people did.
Yeah.
Back when we were younger, we would rent games.
Oh, renting was the only way to go. We used to. Do you remember the Mega Movies by the Safeway?
Yeah.
They used to have a policy where if you could beat the game within the rental period, they'd give you a free rental.
Wow.
And they had a binder with the endings of the games. I can't remember exactly how they did it, but they did, and they took it away from me.
I bet they did.
Because I went back 7 times in one day.
No.
Yes, I did.
That's amazing.
I beat 7 NES games in one day. I rented it. I went home. I finished it. I brought it back. I'm like, this is the ending. And they finally, after the 7th one, they're like, we can't give you free rentals for beating games anymore, dude. I'm so sorry. I'm like, I respect.
But I'm bringing them back so quick.
But I respect.
Or there's other things that we would do. We would lend games was a huge thing. Lending games was a big thing. You had some bad stories about that.
I have amazing stories, and I'll tell you why.
Oh.
I remember trading games for us as kids was insane. Because you didn't, that's what we did. You'd take your cartridge, you'd bring it to school, you'd trade it for someone else's game, you'd play them. There was this one guy that asked to borrow a bunch of my games back in the day, and he was kind of one of the rough and tumble crew, and I was very naughty.
I know who it is. We're not going to mention his name.
We're not mentioning names because we don't do that here. But no, and I remember because then he borrowed them, and then a couple of months later, I started going up to him at school like, can I have my games back? And he wasn't giving them back. Can I have my games back? And you know what happened? I mentioned it to you in passing, and this is the amazing thing. I mentioned it to him in passing. This is before we were hanging out when he was still my brother's buddy and doing his thing. This guy went through the entire bloody neighborhood, tracked this guy down, and the guy had said he had then given the games out to other people and had no intention of giving them back because he thought he was just picking on a nerdy little loser. This guy hunted down every single game and brought them back for me. He went to every house of each of the guys and had conversations with them that got me my games back.
Yeah, it was a great injustice, and I hated that. And you were Gord's younger brother, and you were so enthusiastic about games. You're the first guy I ever saw play the original Metroid.
Yep.
And we would talk about games all the time, even though you were younger. And I was like, this will not stand, because I knew who this guy was. And we were all skateboarders, and this guy was wanted to be a part of our group, and we never liked him because he wasn't a really great guy. And when I heard that, I'm like, this is not happening. And yes, I remember going and seeing him, and then tracking all the games down and all that. So
you were so good about that. Like I was blown away when you did it. And is it any wonder that I love this guy as much as I do? Like, he's been so good to me my whole life. Even before we were hanging out, he was looking after me and taking care of me.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna have the evildoers take advantage of you, because you already had a terrible time in high school as is. Let's make it a little easier on this guy, please, people. For sure.
But I also remember between trading or having to rent games, I remember also there'd be times where you I remember renting games and then pretending I lost them a couple times.
I did some strange things like that as well, like when we were younger.
Yes,
Much younger,
absolutely.
yeah.
So you'd rent the game, and you'd be like, "I really like this game. I don't want to give it back. I don't want to give it back." And so you just sort of keep playing it, and then you tell your folks you send it back. Oh no, I took it back when it was due. No, absolutely. I swear to God, I think there's a problem on their end, and it's under my mattress.
Oh my! Shh. This happens to me under the mattress. Isn't that the perfect place for it to be?
Well, I mean, of course, that's where you hide things.
That's
You don't want your parents to
exactly.
find. That's where everybody hides things.
Oh my! That's a funny one. I mean,
dude, that's classic. But that's
Yeah, I remember some of the other weird things I would do back in the day. As you remember, I was a big Street Fighter 2 guy in the arcade.
Yes, just a bit, yes.
Just a tiny bit. And then we found out there was going to be a Street Fighter 2 port to the Super Famicom, Super Nintendo over here. And I was counting the days. And I knew when it was coming in because I went into the store and I found out the day. And remember back then you didn't know release dates?
Now, which store did you buy it from?
Oh, it was in Guildford. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I had to go out there. So the great thing is that I said to my parents, I'm like, guys, and they knew Street Fighter was a big thing for me. I said, what can I do? What can I do to get this game? Because it was $100 game. I know. Yep. And the reason why we're bringing this up because people are talking about game prices and things like now.
It's always been like $100 for a new game on a new console.
Honestly, always has been at times. And I'm talking Street Fighter was an expensive game here in Canada, to pick up. Especially, I remember Chrono Trigger buying it for $99. But anyways, we're not debating that.
Yeah.
Not debating prices. So my parents my mom had her brother staying with us from Scotland.
Oh. Okay.
And so I went up to my mom and dad and said, hey, Mom, I was talking to my mom. I said, hey, I really want this game, Street Fighter. It's about, $80 to $100. And she said, well, that's a lot of money. I said, yeah. I said, is there anything I can do? I'll mow the lawn front and back. And we had a big lawn, by the way.
You guys had a ridiculous lawn.
It was a big lawn. And she's like, oh, okay, you can do that. And so I figured out the reason why. I mentioned this in another episode a long time ago. So I'm out there mowing the lawns, looking like a good son, right? And her brother's going, wow,
what a great kid!
What a great kid you have! My mom was paying me off in Street Fighter money. You're paying me off in Street Fighter money. I always think I look back on that with fond memories now.
Actually, you say that the Super Nintendo was Street Fighter. I earned my Super Nintendo when I wanted to get one by painting the outside of our house. I spent a summer on ladders and shit, climbing up and down painting our house with buckets of paint. The whole I painted the exterior to earn. And so my parents said, if you work on painting the outside of the house, you'll have earned enough from us that we'll buy you a Super Nintendo. But then I wanted Street Fighter 2.
Right.
And it was the only time I've ever traded in games in my life. I took a stack of my NES games and I brought them in, boxes and instructions all mint, which today I'm crying about having done. But at the time, I needed Street Fighter so bad because it was such a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Like, it's hard in this time for people who weren't there to understand how big of a revolution Street Fighter 2 was in the gaming world. It was like nothing had ever been seen before.
I know, and to have a home port of it, you could play on your Super Nintendo, and it looked pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, count me in. Well, 100%.
So Gord would have like Fred and Aaron and all those guys and Ashley Vince and them over, and we'd all be playing Street Fighter tournaments.
Yeah.
And I was still button mashing back then because I didn't learn anything about real skill until I started hanging with you.
Yeah, well, we played Alpha too.
That's right.
That's where it really kind of began. I have terrible stories. I mean, when I lost my job, when the GameCube came out.
Oh.
And I'd already paid for it at EB Games, and I went and picked it up, and I'm like, yeah, cool. And then I lose my job, and I had to pay my rent, and the EI hadn't kicked in, unemployment and kind of insurance hadn't kicked in. And I'm like, and back then EB Games was good, that I took my GameCube and took it back to them, and they gave me the full money back and all the launch games that I got. And I was so sad.
Oh, that's
it was 2 days into the launch, and I traded it back, and they're like, oh, why would you be bringing this back? I'm like, because I gotta pay my rent. So I traded it all back, and then this was amazing. A few days later, the EI money kicked in, and then I could go back and I bought back the GameCube and the games again. It was just
You
one of those-
basically pawned your GameCube back to freaking GameStop.
to get it back again.
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
Here it is. I'll take it back. Obviously, they don't do that anymore. I remember with Final Fantasy IX. I remember when that came out on the PS1. Great game, but I wanted, because I'm obsessed and stupid, I wanted the PlayStation 1 screen. Remember the like nice little PS1?
Yeah.
You know, the white one?
Yeah.
And then there's a screen, and I'm like,
oh yeah, the one you could clip on the back. And
yeah. I'm like, I want this. And I'm like, but I don't have the means for this. But I want this, but I don't have the means. And we're having this back and forth.
It will be mine. Oh yes.
It will be mine. And then, so what I did is I made kind of an agreement with myself that I would eat bologna sandwiches for like 2 weeks. I'm like, we'll pay for bread and bologna, and I'm not joking.
Yep.
And I wasn't a kid. I was like 26. I was like,
yeah.
And so, let me tell you, 3 days into bologna sandwiches, I knew I had made a gigantic mistake, but I had to stick with what I launched. And to be honest, I love that. I'm still so happy I bought it. You know,
Yes.
getting that copy of Final Fantasy IX and having a beautiful PS1 and the screen all together, it was glorious. But yeah, my dietary stuff went out the window. Like eating bologna sandwiches, smoking, playing Final Fantasy IX.
Sounds healthy to me. I mean,
It sounds like a pretty good time. We're romanticizing it now for everybody. I mean, it sounds pretty good, but it was actually like really crazy.
Now, another one that I remember that I used to do, and in later years, I feel so bad about this, Gord. I'm so sorry.
What?
My brother used to drive one of the cars my parents had to UBC and back.
Yeah.
And
So it's the university.
to the university, and the ashtray in it was always full of like loonies and toonies and quarters, because that was his parking money.
Oh!
See, I didn't know that at the time. And so I used to go in there every once in a while, open the door to the car, and I'd open it, and I'd just scoop out all of the coins, and then I'd take them, and I'd use them, and put them aside, and I'd a few times of doing that, and I'd have enough to buy a used game, and I'd be able to go and buy. I am sorry, Gord, because I remember it stopped because once I heard him yelling about something in the kitchen. I came in and I saw him throw a handful of coins on the kitchen counter, and he yelled, "I had like $30 worth of change in this thing, and now it's gone. Where did it go?" And he was yelling, and I just kind of turned around and went back outside and went over to this guy's place.
Did they never ask you?
Nope. And I didn't say a thing.
Some random person opened up that door.
There was this giant gorilla in the neighborhood that used to run around beating people up and stealing money out of cars, I swear.
That's hilarious. You know, I definitely remember always asking my dad, hey, because my dad would drink beer, and I say, hey, can I take your beer cans back? He's like, John, come on, man. Come on. I'm like, come on, Dad. Come on. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd be waiting for my birthday. Honestly, because my nana in England would send me like 20 pounds, which would turn into like $30-40. And when
that was big back then.
Yeah, and then I'd take some cans back, and I had enough for a game. And then I'm like, actually, parents, can you just lend me $10 more to pay the taxes and all that great stuff? And I mean, just squeaking by all the time. Just squeaking by every single time.
I remember when the Super Nintendo came out, there was a promotion, and I'm pretty sure it was with Pepsi brand products.
Pick up super secret game kits on packages of Pepsi. Best of all, you can win one of thousands of Super Nintendo entertainment systems delivered via Federal Express.
Back when you used to have to pull the cap liners out, and if you could get the 4 pieces that made up a Super Nintendo box image on those cap liners, you could win a Super Nintendo. And if it was just after Zelda Link to the Past came out, because they also had 2, if you got the 2 of them, the Zelda Link to the Past, you won it free. And so a guy I used to know named Aaron and I, we'd skateboard around, and we used to go skateboarding underneath the mall where the arcade was, over by the Sundowner Pub.
Yeah,
yeah. We'd go skateboarding.
I know that place.
Because it had like a slight slope, so we'd like.
I know it very well.
Yeah, okay, so we'd do like the luge races and pull each other off the skateboard. Yes. But in between, we'd go over to the Safeway, we'd go into the bakery and get free cookies, even though we were like 17. We didn't care.
Nice.
And then we'd go over to where all of the returned pop bottles were, and we'd just start pulling them out and taking out the caps and pulling out the cap liners. We'd go home with like pockets full of cap liners, and this is how bad those contests are. We still never won.
Yeah.
We never nothing.
Of
nothing.
course
We
not.
nothing.
You could win Super Nintendo with Pepsi.
But I spent, we'd go 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah.
Into that, and just taking all the caps and taking all the.
Oh,
They kept getting mad at us because they thought we were trying to steal the bottles to try and return them. But we were like, we're literally in front of you. And then when we explained it, they were like,
Yeah,
they just couldn't be bothered.
yeah, like, good luck, kids.
So
good luck with that one.
I think it was months I spent gathering those until the contest ended, and I still never won one, but I remember all those little gray and every once in a while, I mean, we won tons of free pops.
Yeah.
Because those were one of the easiest prizes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I drank a lot of free soda, but never got me that instant.
And it was always about the hunt. We'd always be going like to cash converters, which was kind of like a place where you could trade things in and they'd sell it like cheaper. And I'd go into cash converters and see if I could find any games. It was like, oh, there's some PC Engine game. It's only $20.
Yeah.
You know, that's like some places that you had to scound for.
Well, yeah, because back then as well, before retro gaming collecting became a huge thing.
Before it was anything.
Before it was anything, I used to take my, like, whatever money I had, either allowance and things like that. Oh my God, I remember I used to do this. I would take, say, $30 worth of cash in fines, roll it up and stick it in my pocket, and then I'd put one of them in my wallet, and I'd put that in the other pocket, and then I'd put on like the dirtiest, grubbiest clothes that I had, and I'd like rip me jeans, and I kind of like make myself look all like dirty, like I was kind of trying to look homeless.
Yeah.
And then I'd go all the way downtown Vancouver to like East Hastings, where there were all the pawn shops.
Yeah.
And I'd go in there and look for games, and when I'd find them, I'd be like, oh, look at that. Oh, I really want that game, but you know, well, how much is it? And they'd be like 15, 20 bucks, whatever, and I'd be like, literally it's my last $5, but I really, you know, I tell this great story about how much I love the game. They'd agree, and I'd give them the $5. I'd take the game, I'd put it in the bag, and then I'd go outside, I'd take another $5 bill and put it in my wallet and go to the next store.
So you played it being a bum?
I played it being a bum, and I played it being broke.
Wait, hold on a second. Let's break this down.
Yes.
You played it being a bum.
Yes.
To go into secondhand stores.
Pawn shops in the bad end of the east end of town.
The worst place in Vancouver.
Yeah.
To go and get sympathy from the clerks that you were a homeless person who really had memories about his formative
well,
youth.
More so just, you know, I'm a down on his luck kind of a not so great doing guy who's only got $5, but he'd really like that game.
That would save me.
Would. I really, because, you know, there's very little that makes me happy these days. I do still have a console. So.
And this is a real story.
Yeah.
I've never heard this. I just want to say to everybody.
No, I used to do this.
I've never heard this story.
Really?
No, that's a weird one. It's so wildly strange, and it's almost like that's still putting on a mask but going off. It's wild.
Back in those days, you could find the craziest stuff in these pawn shops, and you could buy it for. When I found the Master System I gave you back in the day,
yes,
I was literally downtown on Granville Street, right before the Granville Street Bridge. There were a bunch of pawn shops there. I walked in the glass display case. It was sitting there, and I asked the guy, "How much is it?" And he's like, "Oh, well, that one's $45." And I opened up my wallet, and I was like, "I only have 20."
What?
Will you take 20? And he was like, yeah, all right, fine. And I gave him the 20. And then I took the console and I literally ran from there to the SkyTrain and then got on the bus to your house to give it to you right away.
Wow, that is
yeah, man.
crazy.
I used to do stuff like that so that I could
the addiction,
maximize the games.
The want and the love and the addiction to video games was a real thing.
Welcome to your doom.
I'm going to end on this note. I have another thing. If you don't have any money for games, and you can't afford games, you're like, what am I going to do? I can only afford one thing.
Yeah.
Don't do what I did and buy Final Fantasy XI on the PlayStation 2. Don't buy this because it's a cheaper alternative. It's a game that you'll play for a very long time because you will lose your life.
Yes.
Like I did.
Goodbye.
I lost my life with this game. And I thought, oh man, I'm really getting my money's worth out of this. I didn't see anybody. Remember that back in the day?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And also your phone line would be busy from your internet use, so I couldn't buzz in either.
Oh, yeah. When I was playing Fantasy Star, I think that was the
No, that was, yes, that's right. That was PSO.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, the other, as I say, the cheaper alternative is to get into an online game and just play a small monthly fee and play forever. And then you're set. You don't need any other games. You'll be okay. Anyways, guys, I'll say to you guys, what are some crazy things that you've done to get games in your life? The crazier the better. Let us know down below. So anyways, guys, until next time.